Greg, Betty, excited to see a young 18-year-old in that seat next year?
It's incredibly exciting. Great to have a new person in. It mixes up the gene pool, doesn't it? Keeps it interesting. And also for newcomers to the sport next season, it's nice you can pin your colours to that wagon and go, I started watching it when he started. And it's always nice to have new heroes potentially on the grid. So that's a really nice thing. Also, we spotted a chink in Bradley Lord's armour, I think, when he was talking about who the new driver was going to be. And we all went,
yeah.
He's talking a lot about coming up from Formula 2 to Formula 1. It feels like it's going to be Kimi Antonelli. And it feels like an exciting choice, I think. Yeah, why not? Pick a newbie.
And he's 18 years old. I love that as well. And also, did you see the Mercedes social media where basically George was like showing him the ropes about how you talk into the camera and what you should say and how to introduce yourself to all of the Mercedes fans?
That made me feel really old. George Russell was the first Formula 1 driver I ever interviewed. Before he was a Formula 1 driver, it was before his first race back in 2019. And then I've always thought of like, the young ones, like George Russell. And now all of a sudden, George Russell stood there with this other new kid in the selfie with him, and Antonelli looks about 4, and George Russell looks like one of the old ones. And it's like, oh my God, even the ones I consider the young ones are now not the young ones anymore, let alone Fernando. God knows how Paul Fernando must feel. So, I did see that, and it made me feel quite old. Can I have a Greg James unpopular opinion on Kimi Antonelli putting it in the wall?
Hey, come and give us your unpopular opinion. Something up to now that you've been scared to say.
I think Kimi Antonelli sticking it in the wall is actually kind of brilliant.
Why?
I think coming in on your debut FP1 session in your home Grand Prix and not playing it safe and going out, going fastest, then sticking it in the wall, getting out and dropping the keys and going, I found the limit, bye-bye now. I actually think it's so rock star. I think it's so cool. And I just think actually, I may sound like I'm making a light-hearted point here, but I'm not. That ability to go and push the limit, that confidence is quite incredible. And yes, he went over the limit and he stuck it in the wall, but everyone does that. That happens. I just sort of think, and this is a mad thing to say, I think him crashing sort of shows you why they think he's so special.
Well, definitely fearless.
Greg, that's it. Yes. Yeah.
It's a much better story than, nice man drove well. It's like, nice, talented young man drove so well, he crashed.
I sort of think we'll look back on that and think, we saw he wasn't like the rest there, didn't we? I don't actually think it's a too bad thing, and he'll get plenty more opportunities. And I don't think that will be I don't think it'll knock his confidence. I think he'll play it slightly more careful next time. But everybody you speak to says this kid's special. So let's find out if this kid's special. It's another exciting part of 2025. My God, next season looks exciting. It just really does.
Hey, Betty, that question from Chrissy's good. Do you want to fire it at Christian?
Yeah, so on the point of there being loads of young drivers in F1, obviously Kimi's just 18 years old, but you've got Ollie Behrman, Franco, Oscar. Oscar's still so young. I mean, you always forget that, don't you, when he drives so well. But Chrissy says, have drivers always been so young, sort of coming into Formula One? Is this a new thing where talent is sort of being spotted a little bit earlier and drivers are moving up to Formula One quicker?
It's a really good question from Chrissy. I remember Kimi Räikkönen making his debut in 2001, and he'd only got 23 car races to his name. And there was all this talk then at the time of, this is dangerous. He's too inexperienced and he's too young. And Kimi obviously came in and aced it and sort of proved there's no such thing. He sort of proved if you're talented enough, you'll be fine. And that did, I think, open the door to Formula One as an industry saying, well, if they're quick enough, let's stick them in. So back in 2009, Jaime Alguersuari made his debut aged 19 years and 125 days. That was beaten by Lando Norris. He is the 4th youngest debut racing driver in F1 history at 19 years, 124 days. Then Behrman, 18, Lance Stroll also 18, and the youngest F1 driver to make their debut in the 2015 Australian Grand Prix was Max Verstappen, aged 17 years, 166 days. So it's sort of a last decade and a half thing, I think, where drivers have come in around aged 19 or 18, and in Max's case, 17. So the answer to Chrissy's question is, it's not that new. I think it was actually Kimi Räikkönen that moved the dial on this back in the early 2000s.
But it is great, though, that they are backing these young drivers. And Mercedes, we've talked about this quite a few times. We've mentioned they might have missed Max, but they're not going to miss Kimi. So picking a driver young can pay off quite nicely sometimes. I mean, it has with Oscar and many other examples that we've just discussed.
18 is young though, isn't it?
It
like
is
the
young.
pressure that is on those shoulders. And like also the thing that always shocks me about Formula One is not only are you having to go out there and drive a car really fast in a really competitive environment, do what your team is saying, listen to team orders, fight also against your teammate, all of that, the sort of on the track stuff. You've got to deal with all of the media that you have to do as a driver as well, the circus around Formula One. And I just think 18, that's so young.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because the youngest to date is Max Verstappen, age 17. Then we've obviously got Stroll, 18, and Behrman, 18. There was hype around Max. Definitely there was hype around Max. It was like, oh, Red Bull have got this gem. It wasn't quite as intense as it's been around Kimi. And also, I think coming into Mercedes and replacing Lewis Hamilton makes that slightly bigger still. So I actually think, even though, as I've just said, no, it's not totally new. We have seen drivers coming in. He won't be the youngest ever person to race in Formula One. And there's been 2 other 18-year-olds. He's probably the most hyped. And that will be interesting to see how he deals with that. I suspect he'll be fine. And I suspect this will be seen as a masterstroke. There's one more interesting thing on this as well. There's no mention of beyond 2025. And I still think Max Verstappen is very much keeping his options open. So, are we in a situation next year where Mercedes drivers George Russell and Kimi Antonelli are in a shootout to see who joins Max Verstappen in that team in 2026? I think that's a possibility. And that leads to a fascinating thing. I think Max could make the switch to Mercedes. And I think Toto would sign Max. And therefore, there's big pressure on not just Kimi Antonelli, but also George Russell.